educate yourself on things. So here we have the second Bank of the United States. It was one of the most important financial institutions in the world. Now it's a portrait gallery, so it's sort of like a museum. It was incorporated in 1816, and it was one of the most influential financial institutions in the world until 1832. It dealt with a lot of money, as you would assume with bank. It was shut down by Andrew Jackson, and it was designed by William Strickland. This is still the original building, so you can see how old it looks just from looking at the pillars and things like that. So this is a statue of Robert Morris. He was the financier of the American Revolution. Now, he did a whole lot of things in addition to that. He was one of the founding fathers. He worked on the Congress and the Senate. He did sign the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So he was a pretty, important person as well. But he helped to get things. The American Revolution is the war that we fought to try to break ourselves from Britain. England did not want us to be independent. They wanted to continue to rule over us. So we fought them, and that was the War of the American Revolutionary War. And so he did a lot of the money with that. So he helped to get everyone, he helped to get supplies such as, ammunition and things like that. He helped to get all kinds of supplies, even just supplies. For example, we got a lot of our supplies from England, and without them, they had to find a different way to get those supplies. So he was in charge of that. He also helped to provide supplies to General George Washington when he was fighting in the war. He helped to create the first bank in the United States. He helped to kind of fix the finances after we broke away from Britain. So he was really important with all the money because the government needs a lot of money to run. And he helped with a lot of that. So he signed all three of America's founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of the Confederation, the Constitution of the United States, and he helped to finance the American Revolution. So he was a patriot, a statesman, a financier. This is Quaker Ivy Gardens, location of 18th century Quaker school and Quaker meeting house. Now, the Quakers were really important to Pennsylvania history because they were the ones who founded it. William Penn founded Pennsylvania, and he was a Quaker. The Quakers believed in peace. The reason that they came here was to peacefully have freedom of religion, and they believed in having peace with everyone. They tried to have peace with the Native Americans when they came, and they ran their colony in peace. So in schools like this, now the schools no longer stand here, but they used to, Quaker teachers would educate all children and servants, male and female, black and white, rich and poor. Think about how different that is than most of the other schools. I mean, we learned about schools in the 1900s that they continued to segregate. And we learned about segregation and how it wasn't that long ago that schools had to be separate. African-American people were not allowed to be in school with white people. And Quakers didn't believe in that. Quakers believed that it didn't matter who you were, that you deserved an education. And so they would educate you if you were a girl or a boy, if you were black or white, if you were rich or poor, they didn't care. If you walked in their doors, they would give you an education and teach you. And that was what made them so different. Because of them is one of the reasons why Pennsylvania was one of the free states for slaves. Because Pennsylvania was founded on Quaker beliefs that everyone was created equal. And it didn't matter what race you were, what color your skin was, where you came from, you deserved a chance to be free. So this garden is commemorating that. It was one of the 5 original Quaker meeting houses in Philadelphia. This is Carpenter's Hall, which is called the birthplace of the American identity. It was the meeting place of the First Continental Congress. Here's someone giving a tour. And it kind of was where what the United States was going to look like. It's where they came up with that. So think about it. We had been part of England, and now we have to try to figure out what exactly is the United States going to look like? What are we going to do? And that was where, this is where some of that happened. Patrick Henry was a very famous person, and he said, the distinctions between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American. And the reason he said that was because when there were the original colonies, they were sort of divided. If you lived in Pennsylvania, you were a Pennsylvanian, and if you lived in Virginia, you were a Virginian. And they were kind of separate. You know, you took pride in being from Pennsylvania, or you took pride in being from New York. And now, obviously, we are still Pennsylvanian. We are still from Pennsylvania, but in a bigger scope, we are from the United States. And that's what he was trying to say, that even no matter where you're from in the United States, you are part of the same country together, and you should take pride in being part of that country together. You should be united. That's why it is called the United States. We are a bunch of small states that are all united in freedom and united in our beliefs and our rights. And so that is where some of that happened. This is Carpenter's Hall. These are the original chairs and the banner, which was carried by the Carpenters Company in the Constitution Ratification Parade. So they had a parade to say, woohoo, the Constitution is a thing, and it is supported, and it's going to happen. This is the Newhall Military Museum. It interprets the role of the military in early U.S. history, so it's all to honor and show you and help you learn more about what the military did back then. The original structure housed the office of the first Secretary of War, General Henry Knox, so he actually lived there. And, well, sorry, not lived there, worked there. It was his office. It contains exhibits highlighting the origins of the United States Army, the Marine Corps, and the Navy. So this says an original standard with a canton bearing an eagle and 13 white stars is said to have been given to Major General Philip Schuyler. The symbol with its eagle, stars, olive branch, and arrows was adopted as the seal of the United States in 1782. This flag may be associated with Major General Schuyler active participation in the Society of the Cincinnati, formed in 1783 by and for the officers of the Revolution. So it's a flag, obviously, but it represents more. You know, there were 13 states at that point, 13 colonies, and that's what those 13 stars were representing. Even back then, what is our country's symbol now? It's, you know, an eagle. Think about an eagle. Well, even back then, the eagle was there. An olive branch symbolizes peace, and that's what he was saying, that their goal was going to have peace. The first Bank of the United States sparked the first great constitutional debate. So this is the first Bank of the United States. And if you remember, we learned that obviously they had to come up with their financial system because we were so used to living off of or being part of England. And, you know, they were in charge of kind of telling us what we were going to do and everything like that. So they had to come up with a bank. And they had to kind of come up with a way to figure out how to use money in our country. So it said it sparked the first great constitutional debate regarding the interpretation of the United States Constitution. It was proposed by First Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. So basically what happened is George Washington in 1789, he signed into law the act that created the Treasury Department, which is the department that controls the money of the United States. And the founders knew that government under the Constitution, they had to figure out a way to fix their financial issue because they needed to figure out a way to support themselves. So they approved a bill, and he said that there would be a Department of Treasury. George Washington, said that that would happen. He turned to Alexander Hamilton, and Hamilton became the Treasury Secretary. And he said that there should be, Hamilton said there should be a central banking system that supported everything. And lots of people disagreed with him. They didn't know how this money would work, where the money would come from. And he said this needs to be important. We need to figure out a bank so that different departments can borrow money from the bank. And lots of people agreed. They said they didn't want them to borrow money from anything. And so there was a debate. A lot of very important people, such as Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Ben Franklin, George Washington, they all debated on this, and they had to try to figure out if it was smart or not, if it should happen. And finally, it did, and the bank did happen, and they determined that that was the way they were going to run the country, but this is still kind of debated today, so it's very interesting. This is the Museum of the American Revolution. It says it's an unmatched collection of Revolutionary War artifacts. So basically, no matter what museum you go to across the country, this has the best collection of Revolutionary War artifacts. So along the side, it has the Declaration, part of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So that is part of the Declaration of Independence, that is saying that, we deserve liberty and we deserve, we're going to create a government that allows these things. So in this museum, there's a lot of Revolutionary era weapons, personal items, documents, works of art. It includes the tent that George Washington used throughout the war, so that's pretty cool. It's an awesome place to visit if you get a chance. This is Franklin Court, which was Ben Franklin's home. His house once stood there. It was torn down in 1812. So this basically is the outline. You can see here it's the outline of what his house used to look like. So you can go stand in the place where his house once stood. It's called Ghost House, and it's white steel, and it stands showing you where his house once stood, which is pretty cool. Franklin Court, this is the Ben Franklin Museum. And here, what's he doing here? Think about what he's really famous for, with a key and a kite. Yeah, he's experimenting with electricity, which is pretty cool. It's a museum that has all kinds of information about him. It's a really awesome museum. Once again, if you ever get to go there, it's pretty cool. The Be Free Franklin Post Office and Museum. It is the only colonial-themed post office in the U.S., so it is still colonial themed. They still have it themed like an olden day post office, which is pretty cool. So they actually do not fly the American flag, and it is the only active post office in the U.S. that doesn't fly it. The reason they don't fly the American flag is because there was no American flag in 1775 when Ben Franklin was appointed Postmaster General of the colonies. So when they first created a post office, there was no American flag, so that's why they don't fly it, which is really interesting. This is called Christ Church, which is a church, and it was often called the Nation's Church. The reason for this is because the reason it's part of the walk is because 15 signers of the Declaration of Independence worshipped here. It's where they went to church. It was the tallest structure. This steeple up here was the tallest structure in the colonies for, I think, 83 years. So it was also just known as a landmark, which is pretty neat. This is the Betsy Ross house. So if you don't know about Betsy Ross, she is the one who is known for sewing the first flag, the first American flag. This home here the original home was built in 1740, and it was restored to look how it is believed to have looked in 1777. So according to legend, now we don't really know exactly what happened, but legend has it that George Washington asked Ross to sew the first American flag. So that is what the original American flag looked like, and that is what legend has it. So this is the grave of her and her third husband, John Claypool. So that's also located there. Arch Street Friends Meeting House, home to the Society of Friends. So it was built in 1804 on land that William Penn gave to the Quakers in 1693. It was the largest Quaker meeting house in the world, and it is still in use. So once again, that was where the Quakers, who we learned about, that's where they met, and they would discuss things and all kinds of things like that. Franklin's first Union Fire Company in the University of Pennsylvania. So Franklin, here's a plaque. He created the first volunteer fire department in America in 1736, the Union Fire Company, which is awesome because obviously look at how many volunteer fire departments we have today. The original site of the University of Pennsylvania, which was also America's first university, founded by Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is a crazy person to learn about. He did so much. It's astounding when you actually think about all that he accomplished. So it was the original home. University of Pennsylvania is no longer there, but it was located there. This is Christ Church burial ground, the reason this is in here is because it is the final resting place of Ben Franklin. It was established in 1719, and 4 other signers of the Declaration of Independence also are buried here. So this is the chronology of Benjamin Franklin. So you kind of get to see a little bit of his life. So here are some of the things that he did. So he was born in Boston, January 17th, 1706. He moved to Philadelphia. And if you look at that, if he was born in 1706, he was only 17 when he moved to Philadelphia, so he was a young man. He was an editor of the Pennsylvania Gazette, so an editor of the newspaper. Then he was appointed the public printer, so he was in charge of helping to print those newspapers. In 1731, he founded the Philadelphia Library. Now, he was only 25 when he founded the Philadelphia Library. So that is younger than me. And to think about founding a library when you're so young, craziness. Then in 1736, he organized the first Philadelphia Fire Company. In 1737, that's when he was in charge of being postmaster of Philadelphia. In 1738, member of the Provincial Assembly. In 1741, he created the first American magazine. Before then, they only had newspapers. They didn't have any magazines. In 1742, he invented the Franklin open stove, which was a new way for them to cook. In 1743, founded the American Philosophical Society. That was that building where I talked about where they could just talk about things and freely talk and share things. In 1749, projected the University of Pennsylvania, so he kind of helped to come up with the first college in America. 1751, founded the Pennsylvania Hospital. Look at this guy. Look at how much this man accomplished. 1752, first to utilize electricity. So if you think about the experiment with the kite and the key and the lightning storm, that would be that. 1753, Deputy Postmaster General for the colonies, so he became kind of in charge of all of the mail for all of the colonies. 1754, Delegate to Congress at Albany. 1756, Colonel of Provincial Militia, so he became a colonel in the war at that point. While getting ready for the war. 1757, agent to Great Britain for Pennsylvania, Georgia, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. Basically what that means is he was in charge of kind of taking these states and what they thought and relaying that to Great Britain. So he was sort of like a messenger between the two, between PA, Georgia, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Great Britain. In 1764, he became the Speaker of Pennsylvania Assembly. 1769, you remember this American Philosophical Society? Well, he became the president of it. Then in 1775, he became the delegate to the Continental Congress, chairman of the Committee of Safety. He's one of the ones who helped propose the Articles of Confederation. So he kind of helped to get the ideas rolling for the important documents of the United States. And then in 1776, obviously, he signed the Declaration of Independence, and he just kept going after that. This is only some of the things that he did. He died in 1790. His grave is covered in pennies. The reason for that is because he came up with the saying, "A penny saved is a penny earned," which is a really popular saying. So now people put pennies on his grave. The United States Mint. This is the largest mint in the United States. A mint is where money is created. So in 1792, Congress passed the Coinage Act, which created the first United States Mint, which was located in Philadelphia. Along with the Denver Mint, the Philadelphia Mint produces 65 to 80 million coins a day. That's a lot. So then the National Constitution Center, you can exercise your right to explore the Constitution of the United States. So basically you can go here and learn more about the Constitution. Signers Hall contains life-size statues, including Ben Franklin, George Washington. There's a theatrical presentation of Freedom Rising. So there's like a play that is put on, and it's a really neat play from what I have heard. This is also where Barack Obama gave a really important speech that was the issue of race in America. Here you can explore more. They have these computer type things where you can explore more about the Constitution. And these are a lot of people that basically came together to change the world, I guess change the world too, but change the United States in some way or another. So you can see lots of people. Some of them were the founding fathers, but some of them were, just people who stood up for things, like, for example, Martin Luther King Jr. Here are the life-size statues, so that's pretty cool. You can go up and hang out with them, which is pretty awesome. So here are some additional resources. If you want to look at them, you can type them in, and if you look this website up, if you just look up virtual tour of the Constitutional Walking Tour, you can find it. But there's all kinds of things that you can go see. You can see a timeline. You can look at the Betsy Ross House, Independence Hall history, Liberty Bell history. There's the different events that have happened. These are also the actual documents, so you can read the Declaration of Independence or the United States Constitution or the Bill of Rights. I will warn you, it's a lot. And you can go to the Constitutional Walking Tour. Like I said, you can actually go on this tour and actually walk it. And you can do it with a tour guide, or you can do it without a tour guide. It definitely takes all day, if not longer than a day, depending on how long you want to spend at each place. But it is definitely on my list of things I would love to do, to go through the whole tour. But I hope that you at least enjoyed this. Like I said, if you go to the website, I'll just show you. If you go to the Constitutional Walking Tour and you type that in, it'll bring you to a website like this. And you can look at here, there's a virtual field trip. And that's where it takes you to what we just did, which is pretty cool. They also can do a video, which is pretty neat. And, so that's awesome. And they have that, especially right now, because that's, obviously we can't really go to Philadelphia right now, not a good idea. But also they just have more information. So for example, this is a whole page on the Betsy Ross House. If you wanted to learn more about it, it has pictures and, information about the house and the flag and things like that. So if you go to their website, there's so much information. I hope that you enjoyed this virtual field trip with me. I know that I really loved getting to see these places with you. And, this is an important place to go, simply because it has so much of our country's history. And I'm always blown away by the fact that I have grown up and I live currently, an hour away from where so much history was made. And I just think that is pretty awesome. And I would love to hear if you have ever gotten to go to Philadelphia, if you got to see any of these famous places. And if not, I hope that it's something that you can do in the future. Maybe when all of this craziness is over. But either way, I have loved getting to visit this place with you. And I just hope that you think about the people who worked so hard to create our country, to the founding fathers who risked their lives, and they risked absolutely everything simply to create a free country and create a country that, has liberty and believes in equality and things like that. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I am looking forward to our next virtual field trip next week. I am not going to tell you what it is, but I will give you a hint. It has to do with a president, and that is all I'm going to give you. All right, third grade, I had so much fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.